Will Jin and Kira manage to find the shard and heal the Dark Crystal? The Gelflings only have until the Great Conjunction, when the three suns align. If they fail, the rule of evil will be established for the rest of time. So it's going to be a race against time, as well as against the cunning schemes and dangerous servants of the Skeksis. Play with up to 3 friends in this fun family board game based on the classic movie The Dark Crystal by Jim Henson. Well, howdy y'all, and welcome to the Dark Crystal Conjunction, your YouTube space to nerd out about all things the Dark Crystal. I'm Jason Elgato. I'm very happy to be with you. I hope this is the start of a beautiful relationship. This is Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal board game. Recently came out February 2018. Today we're going to take a look at it. We're going to look at what's inside the box. We're going to give an overview of the game. You pretty much already heard one. And we're going to run through the rules. We're going to actually do a walkthrough of several turns that we can make sure you understand the rules fully, so you can just get down to the table and play with your friends, relive the movie, relive the memories, play the game, have fun, and lastly, I will give my review. So with that, let's get down to the table because
there is much to be learned, and you have no time.
Alright, well, let's crack open this box. It is raining here. I do apologize if you can hear that in the background. First of all, you have this very nice, sturdy box. Most board games come with this very nice, strong box. Beautiful artwork. Of course, also from the movie, original movie poster down here, movie stills and whatnot. One really cool thing is you have some of the artwork that you'll find on the board along the sides there. And there's some of that original artwork on each side of the board. I really love that artwork. You, of course, have your instruction manual, Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal. And while we're in this, why don't we give credit to who credit's due? Game design, Alessio Cavatore. Illustrations, Brian Froud. Of course, Brian Froud doing all the original concept design and artwork. And the new artist who, if you see any new pictures in here that you're not familiar with, that new artist is Johnny Fraser-Allen. Check out his stuff. It is wonderful. Great stuff. I'm so glad they picked him as the illustrator. He's also the one who did the artwork for the Labyrinth board game. Did another wonderful job there. The mini designer, Gigi Terzi, is also wonderful at what they do. But I actually meant to talk about Johnny Fraser-Allen. Oh yeah, I was right. I was about to say, he also did the minis, and then I saw down here the mini. But yes, Johnny Fraser-Allen also does the minis. There's a video of him where you can watch him talk about how he designed it, why he sculpted them the certain way he sculpted them, and he has a real passion for the Dark Crystal. It's his second favorite movie. His first favorite is The Labyrinth, but he definitely poured his heart and soul into this. The minis are beautiful. Now, my minis look a little weird right now because I was about to paint them. I primed 2 of them. I ran out of primer when I was getting Kira ready, and I think I put her in the wrong spot, so she's a little stuck. So unfortunately, she's going to look really bad for the video because, see, I was using black primer, and here you can see it kind of spluttered, so it really makes Fizz looks really, really sad. But if you guys are interested, I will do a video on how to paint these, because I think this is a game that, maybe this is the first game you've had where you have minis, and they look wonderful. Like here's Jen. This is the color they come in. They're nice, hard, harder than most, it seems like. But you can see wonderful detail. There's a lot of love. Painting them, even though they're small little things, it's going to be quite a task because there's a lot of detail in that mini. I mean, these are just beautiful minis. Same thing you probably heard about the Labyrinth board game. Wonderful minis. Here you can see the Garth Master there. Chamberlain. Of course, they are black because I'm about to paint these. These are the first I was going to paint. My copy, you might be wondering why he doesn't have a base. Mine came in extremely warped. The base came in very warped. This Skeksis was a little tiny warped. I emailed the company within a day. They told me that they're going to send me replacements. And so this base was so warped. The mini itself was fine. The base was really warped, like it would wobble like this on the board. I just decided to rip it off, and it took a lot more time. These are very thick, hardy minis. I was kind of comparing these to the minis you might get from games such as Imperial Assault by Final Fantasy Flight. They have minis. Example, here's a stormtrooper and a sand person, and they are obviously high quality minis. It's very good company, but you can see they have a little more bend to them. You can see the gaffling stick there. The sand person has quite a bend to it. These seem to be thicker minis. Uh, I mean, you just kind of hear these. They have a thicker sound to them. When I picked them up and when I felt them, they felt different than the normal minis. For example, these are some of the minis from the Massive Darkness board game. There's hundreds of minis in this one. I love minis. I love painting, but you could hear how thick these are. These kind of felt more like that. See, this doesn't really have a bend, even though it's really large and big. These feel like really high quality minis. We're really looking forward to painting those. But let's look at what else is in the box. And actually our instruction booklet here is going to walk us through that. Wonderful intro. I do suggest reading through the rules. I will tell you, well, I'll talk about that later. They do a good job of explaining how they themed and why they chose certain rules and why they did things a certain way because of how it was. So of course, you get your minis, you got your 2 Gelflings, your 2 Skeksis. We'll just put those to the side for now. You have your character card down here. Each character gets a character card. This is a 2 to 4 player game. If there's only 2 players, then one side is the Gelfling, the other side is the Skeksis. If there's 3 players, then they recommend that they recommend that the Skeksis, because it's cooperative, it's semi-cooperative, but there's a way that Skeksis will fight each other. We'll talk about that when we get to the rules. So there's 3 players, 2 players are playing the Skeksis, and 1 player controls the Gelflings. But on here, you can see this has all the stats you need. There's really not much to it. Here, for example, has speed. She uses a D8, wit, a D8, brawn, a D6. You can see some differences between Jen. He's got that D8, wit, D10, so he's a little wiser. I mean, he did grow up with the Mystic, so those Uru will teach you a thing or two. And his brawn is really weak. He didn't grow up in the forest living like Kira. He was more sheltered. So it's pretty cool how they theme them. Of course, the Skeksis have a higher brawn, especially the Gartha Master brawn D12. If you don't know what the D12 is, I do think this is a game, kind of an intro game. It's just talking about the dice. So there's multiple dice here. This comes with a dice. This comes with all the dice you need. These dice, I will note, the quality of these feels really cheap, and I thought about replacing them with much higher quality dice, especially some that even look like crystals. I thought would look cool. But the nice thing about this is it's all color coded. So here, Kira's got a D8. Well, it tells you this is the D8. You don't got to search around and, I mean, if you've gamed a lot, you know what a D8 is. But if you're a beginner, it's really helpful that everything is color coded. For Brawn's D4, there's Jen's Brawn, the D12 there, and you have your D20. This is for special powers and things like that. And of course, D10 with Jen. The dice are sufficient. They're all you need, but I'm kind of a snob when it comes to that stuff, so I might replace them if I can find each color. It shouldn't be hard to find all those different colors. What else do you get in this box? You get tokens. You get tokens for a lot of the characters. The Gartham you're going to use throughout most of the game. There's 4 of them. They're different on each side. Of course, that's some of that new artwork, new wonderful artwork there. They come with 4 stands, so you're able to stand each one up like so forth and so on. Once you get to a certain phase of the game, the end phase of the game, you're also going to be using these same stands to put on some of the other Skeksis that you'll see here. Some of the, I was about to call them the zombie podlings, but the podlings that have been turned into slaves because, well, I don't want to spoil the movie. I'm sure you've seen it by now, especially if you're looking at a review of this game. And, of course, another Skeksis. So, yes, there are only 4 stand-ups. I saw someone asking about that earlier. Just because you don't use... There's more things that need to be stood up, but you never stand up more than 4 things at a time. So that's all you need for that. There's some other tokens that you get as well as part of the game. There's the Emperor token. That's going to come into play. This is important for the Skeksis. This is going to decide how they win if you get to that certain point in the game. But it also has many other benefits throughout the game. Of course, the Crystal Shard. You should know what that's for healing the crystal, of course. And this is the player token. It's an Uru. They just given off for that. I did see in the artwork, if you go to the artist page, Fraser, I forget his name. Johnny Fraser-Allen. If you go to his art page, he actually had designed a token with Agra's Eye, and I'm really curious to see what they had in plan for that, but they didn't wind up using it, so there's no Agra's Eye token. You also get a Fizzgig token. This first goes with Kira, but we'll get up to that when we go to set up the game itself. You get these wonderful cards. You have several decks. You have the World deck, and the World deck has all the challenges that you're going to come across when you come through the world of Thra. This is the biggest deck in the game. Here you can see you have 25. Sorry, I had to restart things. I ran out of time on my recording, so I only got through the world cards. As I was flipping them over, I was showing that the world cards show movie stills. There's no original artwork on them. They're all movie stills. They're all parts of different characters, different things you might run into in the world of Thra and the different locations. That's that deck. You have the Uru deck, which again has the movie stills. Each Uru, notice it also has its power. The back of the card is that wonderful artwork from Brian Froud. Each of these are kind of one-time use cards that you're able to obtain throughout the game through various ways. Again, you can see their cards, the bronze, their wit, which dice to use. Again, all color-coded, very easy to follow, very easy to learn. You have the Skeksis deck, which is similar to the Urus. One-time use cards, has all their info. Wonderful artwork, Brian Froud. That old school dark crystal stuff. This one does look new. I think this is a new back. I know that little symbol is Brian Froud, but this is the minion deck. Of course, the minions are only used by the Skeksis. There's Gartham, Gartham Surges. There's ways you can feed on a slave and get health. Of course, that's what the gross Skeksis do. And of course, there's also Crystal Bats. Crystal Bats, which we all know.
Crystal bats fly! Search the land! Search the water! Search the sky!
You have this wonderful timekeeper. This is Agra's orrery. This is what Jen finds when he goes to Agra's high mountain, in her observatory rather. One of my favorite things about this is there's different levels you can set this game at. By default, it suggests that you start at level 19. However, you can make the game easier or harder by starting at different levels. And as you're going through every turn, or every round rather, and it moves, you can see this shows the sun, or rather the three suns, and eventually when you get to turn 0, well, there you have it. There's the Great Conjunction where the three suns meet, and really cool. I really love this piece. Again, this is all high quality chipboard. You can see that. Feels good. All high quality stuff. You got other tokens such as Fizzgig, which will go with Kira. You have your willpower tokens, which I should explain. Each character here, you have your willpower. Notice that Kira has 4 filled in, so she would start the game with 4 willpower. Think of this as not just your health, but also your energy. It's kind of your energy and your health. They call it willpower. If you lose an attack, if you get injured, you might lose one of these, hence it's kind of like health. But you could also expend more energy, kind of like a surge in other games, and you use one of those, and they just summed it up as willpower, things like that. So every character has different amounts. Both Gelflings have 6, but notice that Jen will start off with 1 more. He's inspired by the death of his master, obviously, so he has more will to finish the mission. And this also shows the maximum amount of willpower. There are ways in the game where they can gain willpower. A Gelfling cannot gain more than 6. And the Skeksis, you see, these conniving guys here, they cannot gain more than 4. They start the game with 3 each. There is a way towards the beginning of the game, one of them is going to wind up with 2 points to start the game. So they start off pretty weak. But of course, we've seen them stripped, and we've seen what they really are. They're not as strong as they might look at this point in the history of Thrall. You also get this nice little announcement too that don't forget there's a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray coming out this spring. I'm excited because they're releasing the 4K movie in theaters. I'm going to see it next week at my local Cinemark, and then the back has a little ad for the Labyrinth and the Goblins and all the deluxe stuff you can buy. As far as I know, there's not any expansions to this game. If there were, I'd be the first one to buy it because I want some Urus, some Podlings to paint, and maybe even some landscape, who knows. Well, of course, a Fizzgig. This is not from the game. This is from the pop vinyls, but I would love to paint one of these guys themselves. So with that, let's get down and look at how to set up the game and how to walk through playing it. Here's the game almost set up. I would go to your rule book, turn to page 6, and definitely follow these instructions. It tells you exactly how to set up the game. First thing you want to do is get the orrery. Of course, this is your turn counter. Set it to 19. That's the default. If you play the game more and you want to make it harder or easier, you can change that. Of course, it only makes it harder or easier for, well, the Gelflings or Skeksis, depending on what player you are. Next, you want to choose who is playing each character. You can either randomly decide, or you can have blind draws, get the character cards, hold it behind your back, hand one out to each player. or you can have people decide. You can have them roll dice, however you want to decide. It kind of gives you the option. You pick, you decide. You can, it says alternately roll a d20, and the person with the highest score gets to pick their first character, whatever. So you can do kind of a draft like that. After this is done, take your character sheets, give them to each player, and they do recommend that you play, well, they don't recommend, you have to play in a certain order. The order that the turns are going to go in, and by the way, in the rulebook, it calls every turn a go. So everything's a go, every round rather, or every turn is a go, and then there's multiple goes in a round. The first go goes to Agra, which all it is turning the Ori. You don't do that the very first turn. Second is the Chamberlain's turn. This is the player token. After the go's over, it goes to him. After he takes his go, it's going to go to Jen. After Jen, it goes to Skekung, the Gartham Master. Hope you can see his stuff. I had a hard time trying to fit all this stuff. And lastly, it goes to Kira. And once Kira's done with her go, it goes back to Agra, at which point you will turn this, and instead of it being at 19, we can see time is running down, the Great Conjunction is nigh, you have 18 turns left, so keep that in mind. We'll just leave that there. That would be the end of one round, and that's an important order for various reasons that we will get into later. You also want to give each character how much willpower they have. So again, Skeksil he can have up to 4 willpower, so he has 4 spaces, but he starts the game with 3. He starts with 3, Jen starts with 5, he can have up to 6, Skekung starts with 3, he has that many, and Kira can have up to 6, but starts with 4. Next we see that you want to prepare all the decks. So all these decks, you just want to shuffle them up, make sure they're randomized, blah, 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 shuffle them all up. I don't think my minion deck is actually shuffled too good, so let me actually shuffle that one. And let me turn the Skeksis. Oh, I think that is the right way, actually. Yep. Your world deck, you're going to do something a little differently with, and it walks you through it right here. So you gather all your world cards. So here's all my world cards. You want to set aside the card that says Agra's Observatory. So the title of the cards is on the top of the cards. There's one called Agra's Observatory. You want to set that aside. Next it says you want to shuffle the remaining world cards. So I'm going to shuffle them. Divide the deck into a small pile of 6 cards. And then it tells you the rest. There's 18 cards. I counted them out, but then it turns out it's the leftovers. So here's my 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the rest put to the side. Place Agra's Observatory into the small pile, so I'm putting it here, and I'm going to shuffle it. And the reason you do this is that they want you to not find Agra's Observatory until the end of the game. It's what sets off kind of the last section of the game. So they want it to be something that happens towards the end of the game, but they want it to be to where you can't quite predict it. So it's at the bottom of the deck. You're not exactly sure if it's the very last card or if it's this one up here. But with that, you're just going to place what you had left over on top, not shuffle, because you want to know Agra's Observatory is towards the bottom, and leave it at that. Finally, place the world deck right there. You shuffle all the rest of them. And then before the game begins, just like in the movie, first you're going to start a trial by stone. And to do this, you're going to use the Skeksis player. They're going to fight each other, of course, having the trial by stone. The Emperor just died. So this game really is good with the theme of having you walk through the movie. It's not railroaded because the cards are randomized, so you're exploring, but you're going to run into these places eventually find Agra's Observatory. The goal of the Skeksis is to stop the Gelfling from healing the crystal and to rule forever. And whichever Skeksis, they're also fighting against each other, whichever Skeksis winds up with the Emperor's token, whichever Skeksis winds up with that, they are going to be the winner chicken dinner, because there's no chickens, as far as I know, in Thra. Podwing dinner. The Gelfling, however, want to heal the crystal and restore Thra, just like the movie. So they're set out on their mission, and that's exactly where the game picks up. So it begins with the Skeksis. They have a trial by stone. It tells you exactly what you're going to do. You're going to have a brawn test, and this is going to be this is how combat works in this game. So you're going to look at each character's brawn. So here we have Skekung. His brawn, as you see, is a D12. So we're going to get our black D12 here. That's not the blue. This one, the blue is the crazy D20. We're going to get our D12 here. And notice that Skeksil, the Chamberlain, his brawn is the D8 or the yellow die. So we're just going to grab that here. And these two are going to fight. Each player is going to pick up their die and they're going to roll. And I have a house rule, and I think you know what it will be, of what you should do when you're rolling these die.
Trial by stone.
Trial by stone!
Trial by stone! Trial by stone!
Yes, everyone should blurt out "Husky-da" in their nastiest, gnarliest Skeksis voice. That's half of what makes this game really fun, is reliving the movie and playing out these parts. So each character is going to roll. Higher roll wins. So, wow. He could have rolled up to a 12, but he rolled a 1. Skeksil rolled a 2. Skeksil is the winner. In the case of a tie, you just keep re-rolling until someone wins. So if that was a tie, for example, our last one, then in this case, Skek-Ung would have won. So let's just pretend this was our first roll, and that's what happened. Skek-Ung wins, and so what happens is the loser loses a willpower. He got injured. He loses a willpower, stripped of his clothing. We're not going to rip up my mini again. And he goes down to the moat. And the winner remains in this space called the throne room, where the Haskiga, where the trial by stone, took place. And now you're ready to play the game. All the rest of the stuff that you didn't see in the setup, you kind of just put to the side. The game does say that you put the Gartham, well, it shows a picture. It shows one of the Gartham here on page 7 of the setup, and it tells you that the rest of them are in the Gartham nest. This is the Gartham nest. There is already an errata out, and it says that all the Skeksis that don't start on this space, because I just assume you start them all here, but they corrected it. It says all the ones that aren't shown in that first picture, which that first picture you see, well, these are the components. Again, this is a great rule book, has some wonderful artwork, wonderful stills from the movie, or rather that's promo art. Again, tells you how basic dice work. Oh, you know, if it's a D6, you're going to roll anywhere from a number 1 to a number 6. You know, it's very basic. It's totally got you. But here you can see the picture where it shows you the Gartham. I've been told that some people who've reached out to get some clarification on the Gartham rules, because they weren't very clear in here, and they didn't include like how much brawn it has, for example, that they were told that all of them start in this spot right here, the Gartham nest. And thematically, it makes sense because they're not really called out until the crystal bats go out and find the Gelfling. So they also said that you can assume that these Gartham are ready to go in the Gartham nest. These are such big stand-ups. And again, I wish there were some minis for these. Like, please give me that expansion. It says you can just put them to the side. I'm going to put them here with the Gartham Master because he is the Gartham Master. I'm just going to put them to the side, and I just assume they're there so they're not taking up the place. Maybe put one here just to make sure it's nice and daunting, but I'll move it for now so it doesn't make any shadows on the board. All right, so with that, let's begin a turn. At this point, I think the rules are actually, until you read through them completely, you can't just kind of look at the rules and go, because there's a couple times where you're assuming a rule is one way, and then you turn, you know, there's not a whole lot of text on these, and it's smaller pages, and there's a lot of big pictures, but you turn like 8 pages later, and then all of a sudden there's an exception to that rule, and then 2 more pages later, there's another exception. So what I did for my own help, because I found myself through the first playthrough going back and forth, and I'd go, okay, what was that rule about the Gelflings? Okay, well, here's the Gelflings, but then it's not until you kind of get to this exception part back here about the Emperor that you find that specific rule, or Fizzgig that you find the specific rule I was looking for. So I kind of lumped them all up. I made this this flowchart, which it looks complicated. I'm a computer programmer, so I guess I do stuff like that. It's actually very simple. It tells you how it all works. I'm going to walk through that. I'm going to link that in the description. If you see any errors in it or something I should have added, or if they just have too much detail, I'm willing to change it. I did throw this out to the Dark Crystal Dream Fasting group on Facebook, and I've gotten some good feedback, and I've updated it already from them. And I want to keep doing that because I need to make some more plays. I have already played this several times, and that's why I was kind of waiting to play multiple times before I gave my review and my feeling, and really got a good grasp of the game. Because I don't want to explain it, and I'm just, the blind leading the blind. But anyway, so Agra goes first. Very first turn, she does not turn the Orrery or the Turnkeeper, so it goes to Skeksil. If you're the Skeksis, the very first thing you do on your turn is draw a minion card. This can either be you controlling the Crystal Bats, the Gartham, or it might have a negative effect for you, or just straight up give you, you suck out some of the Podling's essence and get that. You don't shuffle every time. I just did that because I didn't really shuffle. First thing you do is draw a card. If you have the Emperor token, you draw 2 cards. Skeksil lost the battle in our pretend battle that we have. He lost the Husky guy. He lost the Trial by Stone, so he only gets to draw 1 card. So he's going to draw 1 card here, and you simply follow the card. You're going to read exactly what it says. So this is the Minion Surge, and it says, pick a Gartham anywhere, then roll a d4 and move it. If you land on the enemy Skeksis or Gelfling, attack them immediately. Keep in mind that Skeksis will work together if they're attacking Gelfling. But if there's no Gelfling around, they will attack each other because they're all vying for the throne. You know, that's all of them want to be the Emperor. All of them want to have that power. Be the rulers of Thra forever, basically. So let's first resolve that. And it tells you exactly what to do. Again, it's color-coded. You move a Gartham with a d4. So the Gartham are assumed to be in the nest. And as you see, all these rule spaces, it's all these rectangular or square spaces. And those shapes are important because this is our world space. All the spaces in here are inside the castle, and the rules will make reference to them, but it doesn't show you the picture until you get to the very, very, very end. So it can be kind of confusing if you're not a big movie nerd. But again, you can see it here. Here's the throne room. This is the banquet hall. This is the crystal chamber. This is the slave quarters. This is the dungeon, which you can only get here if a Gelfling gets captured or loses all his willpower from a Gartham or a Skeksis attack. Otherwise, if they get knocked out, they'll wind up in here, which has some special stuff. And this is the Gartham nest. So the Gartham nest, it's assumed, is right here on the moat. So whenever I roll my d4, I'm going to grab my d4 as the card said, and this is my roll. This is my speed. The Gartham speed is always a 4. The cards will tell you specifically, but just know it's always a 4. So with this dice, you look at the top number. My son got confused because he's like, Dad, there's 3 numbers on that side. I was like, oh, well, this is a d4, so I guess we haven't used these in one of our games. But you pick the number that's facing upwards. That's another thing I don't want you to get confused on. If you are looking in here, your die is a little different. See, it has the number facing upwards on the bottom. It's just a different design. It's still a d4, and the rule is whatever number is facing upwards, so it's a 4. So I rolled a 4, so I get to move my Gartham 4 spaces. I don't pick 1 to 4. Rather, I have to move those exact movements. So the Gartham nest, it's assumed, is right next to the moat. So I would go 1, 2, 3, 4. You either go clockwise or counterclockwise. Or I would have to go 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't go to any of the spaces in between. I have to land exactly on the number that I rolled. It's a move and draw game. Again, it's very basic, very simple. It has some extra stuff so where you can throw in some strategy. But ultimately, you're going with what the die. Again, the Gartham did not land, as our card said. If they land, then you can attack. It didn't land on the enemy Skeksis or Gelfling, so he's done. Now we look at it. Once this is done, now this is a Minion Surge. Usually these cards, you just move one Gartham and that's it. This is a Minion Surge, though. It says once this is done, draw another Minion card and resolve it immediately. So that means this gets discarded. Whenever you discard a card in this game, you put it at the bottom of the deck. You don't make another pile and reshuffle like other games. You put it at the bottom of the deck. One of the reasons they do that is because when you discard the world cards, they don't want you to know when Agra's Observatory is coming up. That way you kind of have a sense of, I still haven't found it. I'm not sure how close I am, just like Jen was. He didn't really know. He thought it was weird. So again, let's just keep following this. Arrgh! This one just straight up says, a dying grace. Okay, that doesn't tell me anything. That's just flavor text. So move on. Lose 1 WP. That's willpower. WP. So again, this is not good. We're a dying grace, and I just lost the Haskiga, just lost the Trial by Stone. I'm already down to 1 willpower, almost knocked out. If you are knocked out, you're not out of the game. Don't worry about that. And then it says, then put this card back into the deck and shuffle it. So normally, if it doesn't say anything, sometimes it does tell you to discard it. You just assume you discard it. You put it at the bottom of the deck. If it specifically tells you to put it in and shuffle it, then that's what you do. Put it in and reshuffle your deck however you prefer. Most of these cards are the same, so not that big of a deal. But that's kind of the worst card that you could draw as a Skeksis. Okay, so with that was how you begin every turn for the Skeksis. You draw a minion card, and then at that point, you have 2 choices. You can either rest or you can move. If I move, I look at my speed. His speed is a d6. I would grab my d6. I would roll it, and I would move in that direction. I'm thinking I only have 1 willpower out here in the world. There's Gelflings close, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 spaces away. There's a chance I could get knocked out. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to rest. When you rest, you put your guy, you don't put him sideways. That's if you're knocked out. you immediately get 1 willpower if you rest. Now, there is one exception. If I go to the throne room here, and there's a certain way you can move here. I wish there was arrows all the way around. It does show you on that kind of back page, but it's kind of a mystery until you kind of get to that back page. The way you move from the moat, you go to the slave quarters, go there, there, and there. If I wind up in the crystal chamber as the Skeksis, let me double check my rules to make sure that that is what it is again. And I really like my flowchart because it saves me from having to flip back and forth through the rules. The throne room is kind of the more helpful place. That's where the scientist is, and he can help you to heal more. So if this turn I was able to, maybe I do that. Maybe instead of just resting and getting the 1, maybe I'm going to move, and then I'll rest next turn. However, this guy's in the throne room, so never mind. I'm not going to do that because that guy is a punk. So I'm just going to rest. Skeksil wound up resting. He got his 1 willpower. His turn is done. Nothing more for him to do. Once you get these down, the turns go a lot faster, but I'm trying to explain the rules as I go, as we kind of play through it. This is how I'd also introduce it to new people playing it. It's a lot easier. You just get right into the action. So Jen, again, his 2 choices are, do you want to rest or do you want to move? The benefit of resting here, the same way if the Skeksis rest in the throne room, if the Gelfling rest inside the Valley of the Uru here, the Valley of Rocks here, then they get full health. And if there's another Gelfling that happens to be with them here, they can share one of their willpowers with each other. Only Gelfling can do that. They can also do that if they're resting on any other place they're able to share. There could be some benefit again. Again, the Gelfling, it's really good for them to join together as a team. The Skeksis, they kind of want to stay apart from each other, unless one of the other Skeksis is trying to get that Emperor token. That's a great token, which Skek-Ung currently has. So, again, I'm not going to rest. I have pretty much full willpower. I'm inspired by my master's death, and I'm going to roll. I have a D8. I simply roll it. It says 4. When I move out of this, again, this is a special space. When you move out of it, you can either go either direction. So I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, or I would go 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, this is beautiful. I'm already with my beloved Kira here. So first thing I do is okay, is there a Skeksis on my space? There's no Skeksis on my space, so there's no fighting. Next, I ask, okay, is there a world card on my space? There's not a world card on my space. So I flip over a world card and just follow what it says. And the world challenge I'm facing now, I'm at the Soaring Cliffs. And as you can see, the Soaring Cliffs says I take a test speed versus a D8. So the card is going to roll a D8. The card itself can't roll it. So you ask one of the Skeksis players to roll for it. So let's go ahead and roll for that card. That card rolled a 4. So me, Jen, to get to my beloved, I have to cross the Soaring Cliffs. I have to get past a 4. Do I get past a 4? And again, his speed is a D8. If this was Kira taking the test, she would do the same. Hers is also a D8. Although she should be a little faster, I guess, once she reveals her wings. I rolled a 6, so I pass it. The card tells you what you do if you pass it. Now, if there would have been a tie, the active player whose go it is, if it's your turn, you win tie. So if I rolled a 4, I would have won also. If I rolled a 3 or less, it would have been counted as a fail. It tells you what to do here. If I was successful, so it says just leave the card on that space. That's great. It doesn't get shuffled back in the deck. That can happen. You don't discard it, but you play it down, and that's one more space you've discovered. I'm getting closer to Agra's observatory to find that crystal to win the game. If I fail, look at that. That's pretty punishing. I would have lost 2 WP. You'll always say WP. That stands for the willpower. I would have lost those. They're gone. That would have made our time much more challenging because I would have to think about resting instead of trying to explore more and get down to that deck. So I do what it says, just leave it there. And now there's some great benefit that we join together, so I'm really glad that that happened. That's the end of my turn. Again, you move, you resolve the card if there's nothing there, and the turn goes to Skek-Ung. Now, Skek-Ung is the current Emperor.
Hey, the Emperor!
He has the Emperor token. I can lose this token if I get knocked out in any way. If I get knocked out from different trials, from the Gelfling, whatever it is, I currently have 3 willpower. I know he's kind of far away to see. If I lose all my willpower for whatever reason, then I'm not worthy to be the Emperor, and that goes to the other Skeksis player. If he beats me in combat, it's also how you switch it out. Anytime they lose in combat, even if they don't get knocked out. But I am the Gartham Master currently. I'm sorry, he's always the Gartham Master. He is currently the Emperor.
Hey, the Emperor!
So he gets to draw Again, Skeksis always start their turn drawing a minion card. If you're the Emperor, you get to draw 2 minion cards and pick, which is cool because some of these can hurt you. So this one has, this has the Gartham. Pick a Gartham, then roll a d4 if you move onto a Gelfling or your enemy Skeksis, then you attack them immediately. This one does the same thing, except after you do it, again, we had that earlier, then you can do it again. Let's just do this one for the sake of time here. So my other one I don't use, I discard it. You don't get to play both. Normally I would have played that better one, but for the sake of time, let's just do this one. So I roll a Gartham. Oh, that's right. There was a Gartham out over here because he had one out earlier. So here is my Gartham, Skekung, and I can pick any Gartham. So I can pick one starting here in the Gartham nest, or I can pick one already out here. Because he used them last time doesn't mean I can't use him. So I got a 3. So I think I know the Gelfling's over here. So let's start going 1, 2, and 3. That also kind of puts him in peril, because he's close to him. Although Gartham will only attack other Skeksis if the opposing Skeksis player moves on to them, or if they join them up. There's ways you can join up with Skeksis as well. So that was my minion card. It says to do nothing else. There's no one to attack, so I just discard the card. No shuffling like it says. And now I have the choice to rest. I can rest. That would only give me 1. These guys are already pretty weak, but they're strong, so they're not scared of the wilds. I'm going to go out there hunting for some Skeksis, so I'm going to move. My move is a d6. So let's roll a d6 and 5. Again, I have to go in the certain way that it's designed. 1, 2, 3. And at this point, I can go this way or that way. I'm going to go this way. 4 and 5. And I'm over here joined with my Gartham friend. That's the end of my turn. There's nothing else I can do. And so the token gets passed to Kira. Now it's Kira's turn. Kira can decide to either move or she can decide to rest. If she rested, let's just pretend that she does rest because we can see the multiple benefits. If she rests, it's just a normal spot. She gets a willpower. If she wanted to, because she is grouped up, if you're on the same space as a Gelfling that isn't knocked out, then she can share that willpower with him. He's pretty beefy right now. He's looking pretty good. I don't think I'm going to mess with him. I'm not going to rest anyways, but just if. Again, another great benefit is you can group together. When you group together, there's multiple benefits. You take tests together, you move together, obviously, you stay together, and if you get into fights, you fight together. So let's go ahead and move, and let's just have an encounter with them so you can kind of see how combat works. And note that I also do have my special cards here that might come in power, but let's just do a simple battle so you can see that in action. So my speed is a D8, the yellow D8 here. I rolled a 3. So technically you have to ask the other player if you want them to come with them. It seems like it's always wise to do that. So I could either go 1, 2, 3 and explore over here, or I could go 1, 2, 3. Again, you can't go, you have to do the exact amount. So I couldn't get to them. So I'm going to draw a world card. And what's great about this is we can work together on this world card. Maybe we'll have combat next turn. If it doesn't happen, I'll make it happen. All right, so this is the Cursed Forest. And it's a test wit versus a D6. So the forest itself is a D6. Again, get one of the Skeksis players to roll that. And let's see what my wit is. Wit is to see if I can outsmart this, if I'm able to get around it. Kira's wit is a D8. And Jen's wit is a D10. I really like it when they're all different die because then you can roll them all at the same time. So they work together to solve this problem, to get past this cursed forest. So what's really fun, what's a lot funner to do is roll the smaller die first because it keeps the tension. If you roll the bigger die and say you roll a, for example, say here we roll a 9, well, I don't even have to roll this die because I know it's not going to get past a 9. The highest it is a 6. So to keep the tension, the game even suggests, have the lower die roll first. So this is the challenge itself. Oh, this is not going to outwit our smart Gelflings, especially our ones that have been raised by podlings that care for them and the Uru. It rolled a 1. This should be simple for us to do. I mean, actually, we can't lose at this point because if we tie, since it's our go, we win, basically. So we win either way. Now, the way this works is you don't combine the dice. My die result was a 7 and a 3. And, of course, the one, this is the challenge. So all I have to do is beat a 1. Very easy to do. You don't combine these. You don't pick the lowest one. You pick the highest one. So you always only have one score, and it's the highest die. You don't add them together. It's just the highest one. So this one was higher than this, so that one goes away. So my final score on the Gelfling side is 7, and the test was a 1. So I passed again. It doesn't always go this easy, trust me. If I would have failed, I would have lost 1 willpower, but I would have got to leave this card in the space. I see a lot of that you have to shuffle also. But I was successful, so I just leave the card on the space. In some other scenarios, again, what the Gelflings do when they move, so say it's Kira's turn again, this is just pretending. Say she rolls a 3, 1, 2, 3. Say she doesn't want to go this way because she doesn't want to fight, but say she goes over here. Again, I don't have to group with him, I could. If you land on one a world space that already has a card, you have to face it again. The world doesn't change. It's not like you defeated it, it's just you were able to get past it. These vines from the Cursed Forest are always going to do crazy things, so you have to always solve that problem. So moving around is always dangerous for small, little, feeble Gelflings. But again, if I move in a group, I can work together. And also note that you have special cards. So each character has their own special card. It starts the game with you. They're one-time use. You can use them anytime if it's fitting. So Jen's, for example, is once per game, you can discard this card to roll an extra d20 for a failed wit, a test without losing a willpower. So say I would have lost this wit, so say it was a d6 wit, say it got a 6, and Jen and Kira, for whatever reason, they rolled 1s, and it's like, oh man, we're so close to beating this game, and this is an important part, we really need to win this. I could choose to discard this card, so it would just go off the table, and I get to re-roll with a d20. So my current roll, which it doesn't matter which one it was, because it failed anyways, I get a new roll. So I got to roll again. Oh, well, this time I got a 10. Success. Of course, you can fail with this. It's a chance. But you're more than likely going to pass when you do that. But that card's gone. I can't do that again. There are other ways you can re-roll. Let's take this example for this test here. Say again, that would have been a 6, and re-rolled this. And say I have not used this card. And say, or actually say I did use this card, and I came upon this, and I was like, man, we failed this again? Okay, I'm going to give an extra effort and re-roll. So never fear if you fail. There's ways you can re-roll. I'm going to have to use one of my willpower. So again, it's gone. I can get it back through certain cards and through resting. But now I get to roll a d20. So again, if you ever discard one of these for combat or for a test, you get to roll a d20, which most likely means you're going to pass it. All right, so we did their turn. They're done. So that's 1 full round. So again, the token now goes to Agra, and she counts down. So now instead of 19 turns left, we have 18. Again, and once you get this game down, it actually goes really fast because you only go or stop. All right, so here we have, that was Agra's turn. So now this goes back to Skeksil. It's Skeksil's turn. He's thinking about going over here and resting, but he just sees these juicy, delectable Gelfling over here. But before he moves, again, first thing he does is draw a minion card. Is he the Emperor? Or rather, does he have the Emperor token? No. So he draws a card, and this says Gartham. Let's pick one that's a little different so we can kind of learn more about what else you can do. And again, you just follow the directions. This one says Feed on a Slave. If you get that, you roll a d20. On a result of 11 or higher, you recover 1 willpower up to your maximum. You can never go over your maximum, again, remember. And then you put this card back and you shuffle it. So you always have something good. We saw the one that injures you already. Another card you get often is the Crystal Bat. So this is an important one because it explains, it has some keywords that you may not know. So Crystal Bats, what do they do? They fly.
Crystal Bats fly!
So this says, pick any world space. Now, any world space is any of these rectangular or square spaces. There's only one square, it's the moat. But note, there's another exception of the moat. If Gelflings land on the moat, there's no card on it, but the moat, you don't draw a card. It's not, to remember that, you can just know, it's the shading on it is not the same cutout as that. It has to be that shape. If it's not that shape, you don't draw it, or you don't draw on it. So this is kind of a free space, not free, you can still get attacked, but it's not a world space. No world challenge there. So let's see what Crystal Bats do. Pick any world space. If Gelfling are there, the bats attack them with a D8. So I can pick any space I want with my Crystal Bats, and I see the bats right here, or I see the Gelflings right here, so I'm obviously going to pick this space. Now, the Gelflings are not, the only place that they're safe from the crystal bats is if they're inside the castle, which again, you have to have Ogre's Observatory first. They can't go in it like the Skeksis can. You have to have the crystal shard to be able to go into there. And then once you get to that point, you read those last final pages and kind of walk through them. Or if I'm here, I'm protected by the Uru in their valley, the crystal bats can't get me. So in this case, if you draw this card, I would just have to pick a space. There's no Gelfling there. And it says, okay, if you fail, you discard this card because there's nothing to attack. This card, you put it at the bottom. But in this case, in our actual game, there is Gelfling right here. I'm going to send my crystal bats there, and these crystal bats attack with a D8 wit. So again, whatever, and this is how the tests and the attacks work. Whatever it tells you to attack with, you use that. So it says to use the wit, so these guys have to use their wit as well. Of course, these guys are witty, so Jen has a D10, and Kira has a D8. So let's roll. Again, you get one of the Gelfling players to roll. I'm sorry. In this case, the Skeksis player who drew this, he's kind of commanding these bats, so he rolls. He gets a 1. Oh, horrible roll. Let's just pretend that didn't happen. He gets a 4. Okay, that's a semi-challenge. These bats are kind of following them through the cursed forest. So he has a 4. Kira and Jen roll. Again, they're grouped together, so they can do this together. If they were separate, and he picks this one, then only one of them rolls. But since they're grouped, again, there's so much benefit to being grouped. Oh no! Look at this. Double ones. So in this case, if I would have kept that original roll a 1, because it was Skeksil's turn, because it's his go, he would have won ties. So in this case, I look what happens. Well, if they would have failed, I just discard the card. But my crystal bats succeeded, so check out what they do. You spotted them. See page 14 for the rules. When you spot a Gelfling, you instantly send one of your Gartham there. And you can pick any Gartham. I can pick one of the Gartham in my nest, which, I kind of just put to the side here. I can pick this Gartham. I can pick this Gartham. I'm just going to pick one from my nest and send him there. So now we have an attack. So a lot of stuff can happen on a turn. A Gartham has D12 brawn and, again, D4 movement. They have no wit. So, they're just big lugs. They have no soul, really. They're dumb. So again, my D12 is my black die here. So the Gartham's going to roll the D12. And because he's attacking with brawn, now my characters have to defend with brawn. So Jen, he's a weak guy. He didn't get out much. He's only lifting a pan flute. So he gets the D4, the weak D4. And Kira, hers has a D6. But that's not all Kira has.
All right, come on.
Kara also has our little fuzzy sporadic friend. That's right, Fizzgig. Fizzgig lets you up your die, or he lets you use the higher die on brawn only. It's like he's attacking with you. I wish I would have just given him his own die. Would have been really fun. But so instead of using the D6, she gets to use the D8. She gets to go up a level, so she has a little better chance. So again, let's let the lower side roll first. Oh, not bad. With Fizzgig's help, Kira rolled an 8. Jen rolled a 3, so we're just going to discard his and pretend we didn't see him, almost stab himself in the foot with his own flute. And my Gartham rolled a 6. So they win. Whenever someone loses in combat, they lose 1 willpower. If it knocks them out, there's knockout rules. When these guys get knocked out, they get discarded. That doesn't mean they're out of the game. Actually, they go back to their nest. Or rather, what it says is when one Gartham is discarded, another one rises up, in here. So you can put them all here if you want to make them look real daunting. They're always a threat. But they beat them, so that's that. If the Gartham would have won, each of the characters, again, because they're grouped, each of them gets hurt. So you test together, but you also take the penalties together. So I guess there is a downside to grouping up. All right, so that was Skeksil's turn, or rather, that was just his crystal bat movements. Now he can move. So again, these guys can always be pressing them. Let's have him move, because I can vie for an emperor, or I could go after the Gelflings. So let's have him move again. His speed is the die you use. Now it's a D6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I could overshoot them. So in this case, it might actually be wise of me to whittle this down to the D4. Again, you can't ever up your speed, but you can lower your speed. So because I kind of want to fight either one of these guys, I think I am going to lower my speed. I'm the Chamberlain. I want that throne. This isn't the time for me to run. It's time for me to attack, to be conniving, and to go after them. So I'm going to roll my die, and I rolled a 4. Blast. 1, 2, 3, 4. I missed them. Well, it doesn't matter. Again, it doesn't matter for the Skeksis if there's a world card or if there's a Gartham here already. They don't attack me. Gartham only attack if they were grouped up with them. So that's really the end of his turn. It moves on to Jen. Now Jen, he can again rest. If he rests because he's grouped up, he can give one of his tokens to Kira because he loves her, he cares for her. But he's not going to do that. He is going to move. He wants to find the shard from Agra and move on. He doesn't know that yet, but we know what happens. So he's going to move. Now, there is one other thing about moving that I did not mention. You always move as the slowest member of your party goes. So your speed is a D8. Your speed here is a D8. I believe with the Uru, if they're with you, they don't have speed, so you don't have to worry about their speed. You kind of just use them in combat. Let's pretend I got one of these Uru cards. And that's something I didn't explain either, that I forgot about. When you are resting in either the Valley as the Gelflings or as the Skeksis in here, then you get to draw a card for whatever you are. So if you're the Gelfling, you get the Uru card. They help you in your journey. And this goes to whoever was resting. So Ursal, let's pretend Jen rested earlier and he has him. So again, this is a one-time use card. It's just like your special card. You can use this as an additional die. So if I'm going to be in combat and I want to use brawn, I roll my brawn, which is a D4, wherever that die went, and I also draw for this guy who's pretty beastly. He's a D10. So I would roll them together, and again, higher result is my score. Once I do that for this guy, he's discarded, which just means he's at the bottom of the deck. But when you do that to keep the balance, because there's a balance here, the Skeksis get to pick the Skeksis draw from theirs. Or that's if the Gelflings do the rest. If you do the rest, if the Skeksis do the rest in the throne room, then that Skeksis gets it. But if the Gelflings do it, they get it. The other thing is same thing. If the Skeksis rest in here, then the Gelflings get to draw 1. And it's not each of them gets to draw 1. They get to draw 1, and they decide who gets it. Either Jen, he probably needs a little more help in the brawn, especially if he doesn't have Fizzgig and whatnot. Now, let's talk about what happens if one of these characters gets knocked out. You turn them sideways, they lose all of their willpower. If they've lost all their willpower, you turn them sideways, they're down, their turn is immediately over. If that character was holding Fizzgig, like let's actually say Kira got knocked out. She lost all her willpower and she used all her rerolls. Again, when you use some of your willpower to reroll, you cannot do that if you only have one left. You can't knock yourself out. But say she lost the combat still. She lost them all. She gets knocked out. She's down for the count. Her love, Jen, is sad. And Fizzgig then is discarded unless she's grouped. If she's grouped with another Gelfling that is not knocked out, then that Gelfling gets Fizzgig. So there is a way that Jen can get Fizzgig through this scenario. But if she got knocked out on a space where there was no Gelfling, Fizzgig is gone for the game.
Who can say where the road goes, where the day flows, only time.
Devastating. So don't let that happen. Friends don't let friends lose Fizzgig. It's as simple as that. All right, but we're moving. We're going to try to finish one more round so we can get through some more rules here. Here's one thing that I kind of want to walk through because this can be confusing too if you're not exactly sure how this goes in the rules about group movement. Let me read this here to kind of see how it makes sense. So the group movement is detailed on page 13 of the rule book, but I kind of, in my kind of summary of it, I put it this. You can invite other characters that are not your enemy to move as a group. So for example, Gelfling can invite Gelfling, Skeksis can invite Gartham. So if when it comes time for Chamberlain, I'm sorry, this is Skek-Ung, for him to move, since he's with a Gartham here, he can choose so the Gartham to move with him. Gartham always accept the invites, so they always move with you. If you want him to. He doesn't have to move with them. But it's good. Skeksis can invite Gartham, but not other Skeksis again, because they're enemies. And Gartham can invite anyone. So if a Gartham... Gartham can't invite anyone. So if a Gartham is with another Gartham, and I tell one of them to move with the D4, whatever, if a card comes up, they don't group like that. They move like this. I think they should have grouped. It seems more thematic, but that probably would have been too overpowered because you draw these cards all the time. The player controlling the invited Gelfling, so if the Gelfling's moving, they choose whether they want to group or not. Again, you don't have to group. Gartham must accept and go with the Skeksis, except if both Skeksis are in the same place, then the Emperor decides and how many Gartham join. So say, for example, you wind up with a scenario where you got just this ridiculous thing here. Because Skek-Ung has the Emperor's token, he hasn't lost the battle, so he still has it. Again, if he loses it, it goes to Skek-Sil, no matter who defeats him. But if Skek-Sil gets defeated in any way, it goes back and forth. So this is a way you can kind of go back and forth. And if the Skeksis keep the Gelflings from winning, this is a win condition, the one who has the Emperor's token is the grand winner. So they're on a team to attack the Gelfling, but otherwise they're not really on a team. So let's say Skek-Sil is the Emperor in this case, and say it's his turn to move, and he wants to move with all 3 Gelflings. Well, he can do that. When, whatever direction he's going in, however many times. But say it's his turn to move, and he wants to group with these guys, and Skek-Sil, he doesn't want to work with him. He doesn't want to benefit him too much, but he doesn't want him to take out the Gelfling. So say he'll send one Gartham with him. If that happens, then this Gartham will now join him in his attack on these 2 Gelflings. Again, everyone on that space partakes of that fight. So even though he started from here, these guys are not part of that fight. So in this case, you would roll your D4 Brawn here. Well, and again, when a character comes here, if the card tells you specifically how to resolve the test or the fight, then you do what it says. If it says you're fighting the bats with a D4 wit, then they roll their wit, whatever the die color said, and you use whatever wit you have on your card. Unless you have a special card that says, discard this to use wit, or whatever. The cards explain it, so we don't have to go through every single card. The other thing that you want to know is that if you're the attacker, if you're the player and you're attacking, so for example, this situation just came up here, you decide how you want to attack. You can attack with wit. So if I wanted to, I could try to outwit these guys, and there's a special thing you can do there. If you try to attack Gelflings with wit, if you win, again, they would lose if you lose any kind of battle, you lose a willpower. Say Kira's still alive at this point. Again, if she was knocked out, she has to rest her next move. So basically you lose a turn, but you rest, so you get that 1 extra higher up. There are some special rules too, where if she's resting and she's outside here, then the Uru will take her into the valley, and now she knows where the valley is. So if she wants to later in the game, she can move into this space. Before that, she can't move in it unless she's with Jen, because Jen knows the way. Again, it's all very thematic. It makes sense. So if you're unsure about a rule, just ask if it makes sense in the movie world. So in this case, if I wanted to, I could fight these guys with wit. Now, Gartham has no wit, so there's no die for him to roll. It's Skek-Ung here. His wit is a D8. He's not the smartest guy. Skek-Sil is smarter than him. He's more conniving, but I still really want to do this to them. So I'm going to roll my D6. My D8, my yellow D8, and I use the Gelflings. Whatever parties are in here, I use that. Kira has a D8 as well, and Jen has a D10. You look if you have any of the cards that you can add into it if you want to. You don't have to. So let's roll these. This is going to be my Skeksis. He rolls a 3. Again, not very witty. Jen rolls a 9. He already beat him. Well, he's really upset. So he really wants to win this because this is a big deal to him. He's going to expend an energy. He can keep doing that again until he beats them. Again, well, he's not going to beat a 9 with a D8. So that would be, you can't do that. That would be pointless. But say he had a number like 6. He could try to beat it. He got a 5 this time. He didn't do it. Well, he can expend another energy. Okay, so he rolls again. He got a 4. He can't do it anymore. He can't retry because he has no points left. He can't kill himself, basically. I can look at my card. Once per game, you can roll a D20 if you failed a brawn test. Well, this wasn't brawn. they were testing with wit, so he can't use this in that case. I don't have any other special cards, so I'm kind of hosed at that point. But let's just pretend, for learning's sake, that he rolled a 7. Okay, well, he does beat them now. You know, let's say, well, he rolled a 7, so, you know, Kira's 4 is not going to matter. Or, no, she had an 8 also. Whatever. Let's pretend these guys are just fighting. Now that he's the winner, the Gelfling can decide if they want to re-roll. They don't both have to re-roll. They can each re-roll. So say Jen's like, he's feeling very heroic. He's like, you know what? I will re-roll. So he expends one of his energy. He gets that. Oh, sorry. When you re-roll and expend your energy, you use a d20. I did that wrong. Trying to explain it. Wow. Epic fail. He rolls a 1. He's like, no, I love Kira. I can't let this happen to us. He rolls a 4, and he's just like, you know, sometimes it's worth just, I don't want to lose all my energy. It's going to hurt me more throughout the long game. So he decides to let it go. Okay, so officially Skek Ung won. Let's just pretend Kira had a lower die as well. So what's going to happen here is he has 2 choices. He can split the party. You know, splitting the party is always bad. In the game, it's called being waylaid. Or he can just hurt them. So each of them would take 1 point of willpower. But if he doesn't do that, if he decides to waylay them, what that does is it splits them up. So you get each of the characters and you put one clockwise, one counterclockwise. It doesn't matter which one you get. You can split them either way. You can put Jen over there. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that they get split. So wherever they were standing, they're now split up. And that's devastating to them because all their tests and all their stuff works out way better when they're grouped together. Now note, when they do land on these spaces, nothing activates. If there was a Skeksis here, for example, they don't attack them. Because there's no world card, they don't draw a world card. If there already was a world card here, they don't test it. That ends their turn, that ends his go, they don't activate it. You only activate these things when it's your go, your turn. Keep that in mind if you ever have any questions. So we kind of did Skek Ung's turn, kind of went through Jen's real quick. Let's just do one more for Kira's just to kind of see what happens. They got split. They're really devastated right now. This is some high tension stakes going on. Kira's not going down to have a fight, so she is going to move, trying to get back to her beloved. Again, she has a speed 8. She doesn't want to overshoot it, so she's going to roll the 4, the lower one, and success. She got a 2. This is wonderful. Oh, she's over here. Boom. She's back with her again. All that matters is when you land on stuff. Now that she landed somewhere again, you ask, okay, am I on a Skeksis? If you were on a Skeksis, you have to fight them. If you were on a there's one more example we haven't gone through that we should probably go through. Let's pretend there was an enemy here. Well, boom. Here's this guy. I can't outwit him. They're just big, brawny guys, the Gartham, so I have to fight him with brawn. Kira's brawn is a d6. She lost Fizzgig earlier. In our example, you know, so she doesn't get to up it. And Jen's is a puny 4. Let's roll a Gartham. He's a D12 brawn. 11. I should have rolled smaller first because they're not going to be able to beat that. Again, that's why you kind of keep attention. You roll the smaller ones first. You're like, all right, all we got to do is beat a 4. And wow, he rolled even better. This is a tough Gartham. So in this case, you fail. Again, you can expend energy to retry. If you don't, then your turn's over. Like that's the end of the turn. You each, because you're each there, you're grouped. You lose a willpower. If you were not grouped, only the person fighting would lose the willpower. All parties involved get the successes and they get the losses. Because I lost this battle and there's an enemy here, I don't get to explore the world. So now I lost a willpower and I didn't get to a card. So that's really bad. If I would have won, so say Jen's like, or say Kira, you know, I mean, she's a heroine. She's like, you know what? I'm throwing something out. She uses one of her willpowers, decides to roll her d20 to beat that 12. Let's just pretend she rolled a 16. Success! She beats him. She gets a 16. Again, this only has 1 willpower, so it's knocked out back in the nest. And she gets to now explore. So once you defeat an enemy, now you kind of look at this. Okay, if she defeated an enemy on a place that already had one, they would resolve that card. There's not one, so she gets a new card. Let's see what she got. The Great Plains. There's no effect. Oh, this is wonderful. This is nice and easy. Even the Uru will walk through it. So that's kind of a safe space now. So now we know there's a safe space. Not all the cards are really bad. Some of them can be worse than what we've seen. But that's really it. One thing I do want to correct. I said when the Gelflings get knocked down, they wind up here. That's if they got knocked down from a test or something. If you get knocked down by a Gartham, knocked out rather, you lose all your willpower from a Gartham or from a fight with the Skeksis, then you wind up in the dungeon. And again, you have to rest that one turn, your next turn, and then from there you can move out of the dungeon. And it's kind of the same movement the way they go out. You start here in the moat as turn 1, and then it's 3, 4, 5, whatever you rolled, and so forth and so on. Now, when you do get to Agra's, let's just find out where that Agra card was. So you're playing this game, you know, it's about a 30 to 60 minute game. After you've played it a couple times, you can get through it pretty fast because everyone knows what to do. Your first playthrough will kind of take a little longer because you're kind of, oh, let me make sure I got that rule right, or what does it mean when it says world card or world space, so forth and so on. So when you get to Agra's Observatory, again, there's a test. You have to test wit versus a D20, so that's very hard. His wit by default is a D10. If you're with Kira, you might not be. Hers is a D8, so you don't have a good chance of getting this. You might, though, and again, you can use your special card to roll a D20 against it as well. If you fail it, it tells you what you do. Gelflings on the space cannot rest or move, but must test wit again when it's their go. This continues until the test is passed. So once you get to Agra's Observatory, you have to pass it, or else you're just going to be stuck there and keep going. And most likely you'll eventually pass it. Otherwise, you lose the game when time runs out. If Gartham or Skeksis end their move here and defeat the Gelflings in combat before the shard is discovered, the Gelflings lose the game. So there's multiple ways you can lose the game. And again, if the game ends at that point, then the Skeksis, whichever one winds up with the Emperor's token, is the winner, ultimate winner. But if you're successful, then you take the shard token and you leave this card on the space. Now at this point, there is a special rule that happens once you can do this. You get to the end game, and it tells you here. When a Gelfling is carrying the shard, and my shard is right here, so let's say that Jen got the shard, and he doesn't have to be the one to get the shard. It could be Kira. You know, you don't follow the movie to a T, otherwise it'd be a little less fun game. When the Gelfling is carrying the shard of the crystal, it acquires the ability to enter the crystal castle. So now you can move into the castle, just like the Skeksis can. You can now walk straight up in it, all tough dude, you know, just like they do in the movie. When the movement takes it to the moat, instead of continuing to move clockwise or counterclockwise, the Gelflings can move from the moat into the first space of the castle crystal, the slave quarters. Its moves immediately end and the end game begins. So at that point, again, so say you're here and you know it's your next turn and you roll and you get a 9. You know, you're grouped up. You don't have to be grouped up. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now that you're at the moat space, you start immediately at the slave quarters. And at this point, the game changes. There's not going to be any more Skeksis, there's not going to be any more Gartham. The Gartham are going to be out here in the world. They're kind of dumb. They don't really know what's going on. You're going to get these other tokens here, and you're going to start setting them up. And it tells you what to do. Basically, you're going to walk through, at this point, you're going to go to page 22, and you're going to walk through the end game. It's going to tell you exactly what you do. Now, when this happens, if the other Gelfling is not already moved or grouped with them, then they immediately group with them. So if you weren't grouped, or if you got waylaid for whatever reason, now that you the final part of the movie, and on their it explains to you exactly how to set up. You're just going to want to read through this. Basically, what's going to happen is the Skeksis move here. It'll tell you here. Every time a Skeksis has a go in the crystal chamber, oh yeah, so they start here in the crystal chamber. Once you get to this in-game phase, the Gelflings are joined together. They immediately start having to get through each room. It tells you what happens here. There's a slave quarters. It's a speed test against a D8. It tells you what happens if you fail. Basically, you're going to lose a willpower each time, and you're going to not be able to progress. You have to beat this challenge. You have to get through all these different challenges to finally heal the crystal. Whenever it is the Skeksis' turn during this end phase, they fight each other. And again, if they lose in combat, doesn't mean that they get knocked out. If they lose in combat, they're able to get that token. Note also that the Gelflings cannot rest once they're in the castle. They're in here. This is the last run. If one of them gets knocked out, they're out of the game. That's the only time you can get eliminated, but it's the end of the game. So the player elimination of this is not too bad. If the Gelflings do defeat the challenge, which it tells you exactly what you do here, then that cardboard stand-up is gone, and they move on to the next one. So in this case, they're going to go to these guys here, try to solve that problem that's on there. If they do that, they move on. Again, it's after every turn. They do that, and until finally they get to the Skeksis, have to defeat them. And if they do, you have the most epic scene in all of cinematic history, and you win the game. So that's basically the game in a nutshell. There's a tiny bit of other rules that if you look at my flowchart, I do explain when you come up to them. Again, let me know if there's any issues with that flowchart, or if you have any questions. I do want to make that easy, understandable. I could probably even whittle down some of the stuff I did. I may have added too much. But that's basically the game. It's a roll and move, very simple game. There's a little bit of strategy you can do here and there. You are limited by your die roll because you basically have to, you're going with the luck of the die. So if this tells you to move one space, and you're trying to move 2 or 3 or 5, then you have to move 1. So you kind of, there's a lot of chance involved. So you have to, okay, what's the best probability I can do? So it has a lot to do with probability. Again, that makes it a great introductory game. A lot of fun, quick game. But with that, let's get down to the official review. Alright, well, let's get down to the review of this game. And I'm going to direct this game towards different types of people. If you are like me and you're a Dark Crystal nerd, you're a fan, you're a collector, then of course you probably already have this game. You might just be watching this because you just want to see more Dark Crystal stuff. Wait until the Netflix series is out, and then you just, binge watch that. It's not out yet though, so you got to have something. Hopefully I can provide a little bit of that for you. If you are a casual gamer and don't know the Dark Crystal, or a hardcore gamer and don't know the Dark Crystal, I don't think you're going to like this game. Before I even explain that a little further, let me give the plus of this game. It's beautifully designed. Everything feels great, looks great. The minis are outstanding. I tried to not look at any reviews. There's not really many out of even the Labyrinth game. There's lots of the Labyrinth game, but I try to stay away from those. I didn't get the Labyrinth game because I was waiting for the Dark Crystal one to come out. I just wanted to play it and experience it myself. Hopefully, no bias or whatnot. Now, when I got the box and I saw the minis standing out here, in my mind, when I see a game that has outstanding minis like that, I think of the more hardcore RPG. I was going to grab some, but I'm not going to do that. Dungeon crawls, things like that. And it makes me think that there's going to be a heavier game there. It's not like I only like heavy games. I do like heavy games. I enjoy Euros. I can also enjoy Amerithrash, or some will say Ameritrash as well, which really involves a lot of involves a lot of luck. And as you can see from all the dice you use, it's involved in your movement, your combat. You're at the mercy of the cards or what it says. There are some options. It's not, some people are going to be like, oh, it's just simply a Candyland or Monopoly. No, there's more to it than that. Let's be fair. But the big thing about this game is it is heavy on the nostalgia. It's heavy on the theme. And it does a great job of you kind of reliving the movie through basic ways. And again, if you saw the original designers talking about when he was doing a playthrough of the Labyrinth game, he says his goal and his target audience was guys like him who had grown up with it to be able to play with their kids. He says, I made this for me and my 6-year-old daughter. So it's designed to where, again, it says it's a fun family game. So it's not a heavy game. I know some people see it, they think of the artisanship and the craftsmanship that it took to make these kinds of movies, and what a hard worker and innovator Jim Henson was. And they think they're going to get that in this game. You're not. You're not going to get that in the game. I'm sorry to disappoint you. I know some people, that's what they want it for this game. That's what they wanted for the Labyrinth game. They were heavily let down. But if you know coming into this game what you're going to get a fun time remembering the movie. It's a lot of nostalgia. It does have some replayability because of that, because there's shuffling of cards. And you can take on different roles. You can try it, try to make the game harder or more less difficult. If you add in some of the fun stuff like we do with my family, everyone has to say "Ski God" yell and go all crazy and act out some of the parts of the movie. When you get the crystal and you're slamming the thing, you got to be like Jen. This is one of the games you want to put on the outstanding soundtrack for by Trevor Jones. You want to be playing that as the game is going, because if you're nostalgic about this movie, if you remember this movie, if you're a child of the 80s like I was, and you love this movie, then you're going to like this game, even though it's simple. But just know going into it, it's simple, and it's that. Now, one of the downsides of that is, because everything is so high quality, but it is a simple game, the price point. The MSRP, at least in US American dollars, is $49.49. I've seen it already on sale, though, for like $40 and $35. depending on the shipping places. But the game itself, when you see that price point, when I see that price point, when I see these outstanding minis on the front of the box, it sends a message to me that this is a heavier game. You know, I assumed it might have been, but I was kind of open to it. When I was reading the back and I saw, oh, family fun, and as I read through the rule book, I was like, okay, this is not a heavy Euro or a heavy game at all, but this is something I can enjoy with my family. We can relive the movie. And again, when I played it with one of my children who's 8, I'm sorry, he's 8 now. He had a birthday recently. My other one who's 11. They both enjoyed the game. We had a lot of fun playing it. We relived the movie as we were playing it. It was a blast. And it's fun because the very first time my son was playing it, and I was explaining to him how the die worked, like, oh yeah, this is your speed and this and that. And we've messed around with playing some role-playing games. He's like, oh, it's kind of like role-playing, you know? So there's ways you can make this funner. And so we do stuff when, like, you know, you saw some of my die roll. I rolled a 1 sometimes. So we make it fun by saying, like, oh, Jen stabbed himself with his Furka, trying to get the Skeksis. He missed, you know, like we added more fun. There's things you can do like that. You know, make fun rules, make family rules. Again, board gaming is about spending time with people. It's not just about number crunching and whatnot, but just know what you're getting with this game. You're getting a simple, straightforward game. It's not as simple as Candyland. Again, it took me a long time to explain some of those rules. There's a lot of different little things you can do here and there. But overall, once you get those down and you play through a couple rounds, the game goes rather fast. Again, it's about a 30 to 60 minute game. I've not played it with my wife yet. Just hasn't had the time. Our schedules haven't worked together. I think she will like this one because she does not like heavy games at all. She does not like tons of strategy like I do a lot. So I do think she will like this game. You know, her and I are about to see the movie on 4K next week in the theaters. I'm super excited about that, and we're definitely probably going to come home and relive it playing this game even probably before. But with that, hardcore gamers, I don't think, if you don't like the movie, if you don't know anything about the movie, I think you'll be confused. I have a friend that I hang out with a lot, and I thought about showing him this game. I showed him the minis and I showed him the components, and I was going to ask him to play because I was curious about his review, but I kind of, you know, knowing his games and we played so long, I was like, I don't think it's going to make sense to you because he doesn't know the theme, and it's so theme heavy. A lot of the rules are decided the way they did the rules, you know, especially when you read through the rule book. They decided things would go a certain way because of how Agra would act, or because of how the Gelfling would react, or how the Skeksis would act. So it makes sense if you know the movie, you love the movie, you do get to relive it in a fun, simple, straightforward way. One example I was thinking of when I was telling my friend this was the Oregon Trail card game. That game, you know, that game's like a $10 game you can buy at Target. It's cheap and it's a really stupid game, but me and my friends played it and we had a blast because we remember being in computers and dying of whatever, all the weird diseases, and dying of snake bites. And it was such a ridiculous, it was just as dumb as the actual video game. You relived the video game, but we had fun doing it. We played it a couple times, and we don't really want to play it again. We would if there was another friend we ran into that hadn't played it yet, just because it's fun. This is a fun game. It does what it does well. The price point on it is a little high, if I think, for what it delivers. You know, that high price point, these nice minis, I would have hoped they could have got some more out. You know, maybe instead of these you know, again, this is nice chipboard and whatnot. But maybe some more minis. You know, maybe I'm not sure. I'm thinking that maybe if these guys would have come in like kind of a little pewter thing or a cheaper plastic, not like the kind of, you know, paint me mini, you know, the Serious Board Gamer mini, you know, collectible minis and whatnot. I probably would have could be able to recommend it to a wider audience more. But it's not a heavy game. There's nothing original about it. It's all based on the theme. If you know the movie, you'll love it. If you don't, I don't think you will, because it's one of the questions you ask of a game. Okay, if I strip away the theme, what do I have left? Well, you know, a lot of people compared Labyrinth to, you know, the Talisman game from the 80s. You know, this is a lot like Talisman, you know, and some people still like that game. This is similar to it, you know, it's you roll, you move, you solve the things. It's simpler, though. It's a lot simpler. So again, I think this could be a great introductory game for your kids. Again, it's aimed at 6 and up. So I think what the designer was going for, and, you know, having a game for a 6-year-old and up, he obviously wants to teach her heavier elements of gaming. You know, there's choices on the cards you have to make. Do you want to rest? Is it worth me going out and exploring, or should I rest and save up because the Gartham and the Skeksis are about to attack me? Should I lower my die? You know, you're going to learn about probability. So there are a lot of things for younger kids to learn, a lot of great introductory things. So for that, I think it's worth it. But again, I think if I wasn't a fan and I saw someone else playing this, I would probably be intrigued. I would look at it and be like, whoa, this looks amazing. If I would sat down and played it and not know anything about the Dark Crystal, I would probably be like, okay, that was interesting. I kind of want to see the Dark Crystal now. It looks very otherly, and I like fantasy and things like that, but I don't think I would want to be, oh, let's play this game again. That was awesome. Let me try something else, But being a Dark Crystal fan, playing with other Dark Crystal fans, I think you will have some replayability. That's my best kind of review I can get. I'm curious what you all think. Again, in the comments, leave any questions you have, any corrections you have. I hope I didn't explain anything wrong. I know I could ramble and start speaking fast. But again, this is the Dark Crystal board game. Jim Henson's a Dark Crystal board game, 2018. Hope you all enjoy.